You know that feeling when you walk into a room full of experts and immediately want to disappear? When everyone seems to know exactly what they're doing and you're just trying not to look completely clueless? Well, what if I told you that your inexperience isn't your weakness? It's actually your secret weapon. Welcome to the modern sages, ancient wisdom, modern application. Today, the counterintuitive science of why beginners often outperform experts. What ancient Zen masters knew about the power of not knowing, and your 2-minute practice to reclaim your beginner's advantage. Let's start with a story that happened in 1967 in a small Zen temple in California. Shunryu Suzuki, a Japanese Zen master, was teaching a group of eager American students. They hung on his every word, desperate to absorb his decades of wisdom. But Suzuki noticed something troubling. The more his students learned, the less they actually grew. One morning, he made an observation that would change everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. He called this concept Shoshin, beginner's mind. The idea that true mastery comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from maintaining the openness and curiosity of someone who knows nothing at all. Fast forward to 2014. Dr. Lawson and Dr. Theory are studying something fascinating at the University of Colorado. They're tracking undergraduate students in research programs, expecting to find that experience breeds success. But their data tells a completely different story. Hey, quick question for the regulars. Are you someone who jumps into new things fearlessly? Or do you research everything to death first? Drop it in the comments. The novice students, the ones with zero research experience, are reporting something extraordinary. They're experiencing cognitive gains that blow their experienced peers out of the water. We're talking about understanding the scientific process, developing critical thinking skills, even building their professional identity. The beginners are outpacing the experts. But here's where it gets really interesting. When these researchers dug deeper, they found that novice students were perceiving benefits that the experienced students had stopped noticing entirely. The beginners reported higher personal growth, greater professional development, and, this is crucial, they felt more capable of making meaningful contributions to science. The experienced students? They'd plateaued. They were protecting what they already knew instead of remaining open to what they could learn. This principle isn't limited to academic labs. In 1996, an 18-year-old kid named Kobe Bryant entered the NBA as the youngest player ever drafted straight from high school. Everyone expected him to sit quietly in the corner and learn from the veterans. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone. He challenged Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most dominant players in basketball history, every single day in practice. Veterans typically ease into the league, deferring to established stars. But Kobe had no such inhibitions. His inexperience wasn't a liability, it was his superpower. Years later, in his book, The Mamba Mentality, Kobe would write about this exact principle. He called it unlearning, the deliberate practice of approaching each challenge as if encountering it for the first time. He credited his rapid rise not to natural talent, but to his willingness to remain perpetually curious, perpetually questioning. But why does this work? What's actually happening in our brains when we embrace inexperience? Dr. Robert Bjork, a cognitive psychologist at UCLA, has spent decades studying something he calls desirable difficulty. His research reveals that our brains learn best when we're struggling, when we're uncertain, when we don't have all the answers. Here's the kicker. Experts often avoid this productive struggle because it threatens their identity. They've worked hard to become good at something, and admitting ignorance feels like moving backward. But beginners? They have no reputation to protect. In one stunning experiment, researchers studied how people learn motor skills through observation. They had novices watch 2 types of demonstrations: perfect expert performance and imperfect novice performance. The assumption was that watching experts would produce better results. The assumption was wrong. The beginners who watched other beginners actually learned faster and retained skills longer than those who only watched experts. Why? Because they could see the learning process itself, the mistakes, the corrections, the gradual improvement. The expert demonstrations were too polished, too removed from their current reality. This pattern shows up everywhere once you start looking for it. In mental health research, 13-year-old novice interviewers were getting insights from their peers that experienced adult researchers couldn't access. Their inexperience wasn't a bug, It was a feature. They asked naive questions that cut straight to the heart of issues. One young researcher noted, "Not knowing made me ask real questions adults skipped. Sometimes the most profound insights come from the most basic questions." This brings us back to Suzuki's temple in 1967, where he was watching his students struggle with a fundamental paradox. The more they tried to become Zen masters, the further they moved from Zen mastery. Their accumulated knowledge was becoming a barrier to insight. Suzuki realized that expertise can create what cognitive scientists now call functional fixedness, the inability to see new solutions because we're trapped by what we already know. The beginner's mind doesn't have this problem. In one particularly revealing study from the research programs, a first-year biology student described her experience. "I entered with no preconceptions, rapidly grasped the scientific process through trial and error. By year 2, I was leading experiments, crediting my blank slate for spotting flaws experts overlooked." Meanwhile, her experienced peers felt stuck defending old methods. They were experts, but their expertise had become a cage. And here's what's fascinating. James Clear discovered the exact same principle nearly 50 years after Suzuki. In Atomic Habits, Clear writes about beginners' gains, how novices build momentum fastest because they haven't attached their identity to being good at something yet. He found that people improve 2 to 3 times faster when they don't protect their self-image. This isn't just ancient philosophy, it's backed by modern neuroscience. Now for the 2-minute practice. Open your Notes app or grab a piece of paper. Write these 2 sentences, filling in the blanks. One area where I've been trying to look like an expert is, if I approach this with complete beginner's mind, the first question I'd ask is, be honest. Maybe it's your job, a relationship, a skill you're learning. What would you do differently if you had permission to not know? What would you try if you weren't protecting your reputation as someone who's supposed to know better? Pause the video and do this now. It takes 30 seconds, but the insight can last years. Here's the principle in one line. Your inexperience isn't something to overcome, it's something to leverage. The moment you stop protecting what you know and start exploring what you don't, you unlock exponential growth. Here's what to try. Pick one area where you've been playing expert and give yourself permission to be a beginner again. Now I'm curious, what scares you more, looking incompetent or staying stuck? Drop your answer like this. My fear? One thing I'll approach as a beginner. If you want more ancient wisdom with modern application, subscribe. We post daily.